everybody. Jeremy Guzman here, and this is how to utilize multitracks in your services. In this session, we're going to learn how to incorporate metronomes, loops, and multitracks, also known as stems, into your services to enhance the sound of your music during worship. We're going to cover ways to easily get started using tracks, as well as answer questions like, how do we still have freedom to be spontaneous during a worship service if we're locked into a track? This may not be for every church. There are some churches that use clicks, some that use loops, some that use full tracks, some that don't use anything at all. Depends on how big your band is, but there's several churches that avoid using tracks for a number of reasons. And one of those reasons is the perception that when they're running tracks, it requires too much tech knowledge and too much equipment. And the other reason is a fear of not allowing the Spirit to move freely during services. So I hope to dispel some of those thoughts in the next few minutes here. The Bible says in Proverbs 16:3, commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established. In other words, if we completely depend upon God in our work, He will establish our plans. We'll have a way to follow His will, His Spirit, and His prompting. But we can do that in the moment as well as ahead of time. And I believe that God can give direction in the moment, or days before, or weeks before, and so on. So why would we use tracks? Well, we need to push ourselves. We need to stretch, and we need to reach creatively. We've all been blessed with a musical gifting, and we've been called to lead in those giftings. And we serve a creative God who's deserving of all praise, and we've been appointed to reach the lost however we can morally do that. And the culture around us is moving creatively, and music is not stagnant. So if we stand still, we make ourselves increasingly unrelatable to the culture around us. But God's creative, so we should be creative too. We shouldn't be afraid of it. Tracks help in raising the level of musical excellence in several different ways. Number one, you have repetition and arrangement. Now that might be a reason many people don't consider using tracks due to the thought of playing a song with a set-in-stone arrangement. But if you use a program like Ableton or Loop Community Prime or Multitracks Playback to play your tracks, you aren't set in stone in the arrangement, but you have that more moldable format. And I like to think of tracks as an additional band member who never messes up if you give it the right direction. And if you come from an environment where there's a lot of spontaneous elements in the middle of your set, then you may have a harder time programming tracks, but it is certainly not impossible, and you definitely shouldn't be discouraged from doing it. Playing with a set arrangement makes your band much tighter, and it actually allows for more creativity within the parts because there's less to worry about in the overall song arrangement. Musicians know that when you're moving from verse to chorus, what gets repeated and what doesn't, so your band spends less time staring at the worship leader wondering where you're going next. Also, not only will it help your band spend less time staring at the worship leader, but your congregation will do the same because they're going to know where the song's going without you having to sing an intro or sing an intro to each section or wave your arms, anything like that. And it can do a lot in aiding with keeping distractions at a minimum. Another way tech in worship can help you is that you have diversity in instruments and tones. So a problem that most bands have probably faced is, how do we make a song fresh? We've played it a lot. People may be tired of hearing it. It's played the same way every time, so how can we breathe life into it? Well, one way is that you can introduce new tones, new sounds, new textures into your band. You don't have to be afraid of electric guitars or aux keys. Your keyboard probably has 1,000 sounds on it. So use them. Don't distract with them, but don't be afraid to try new things. Introducing new instruments and sounds not only helps songs individually, but also prevents sets from becoming monotonous. And tired ears happen to everyone when your set has no tonal, or instrumental diversity. We're all called to be skillful musicians in Psalm 33, and using tracks is an excellent way to help live this out. It takes some extra time, it takes some extra effort and practice, which inevitably leads to you being more skilled as a musician when you're focusing on that, spending time on it. I've found in people that when they add the technology of tracks, it helps fuel their passion and desire for God by elevating their skills, which they're using for His glory in the first place. And we're told in Scripture to sing a new song. Tracks create a new way to live out this command, and that just like putting a fresh coat of paint on an old piece of furniture makes it different, we can make an old song new by changing the instrumentation of the arrangement. So next we've talked about the why. We need to start talking about the how. There are several ways to run tracks, this technology in your worship. Multitracks Playback is a free app for your devices. Loop Community Prime, a free app for your devices. Ableton Live, an inexpensive app for your laptops. Multitracks Playback has a simple user interface, and it integrates with multitracks.com, which has a place that you can rent tracks, you can buy tracks, you can individualize tracks, like customize tracks, and we'll talk about that later. And you can also upload your own tracks to that site. So it's a free app. There are some subscription services with it. Loop Community Prime, another free app, and you can have a quick view of song sections. It also integrates with loopcommunity.com tracks, and it has several of the same features as Multitracks Playback. And then Ableton Live is like the granddaddy of all of these. It's what started Playback app and inspired Loop Community app. Several people still use Ableton Live. I use Ableton Live, but I also at times will use Playback or Loop Community, mainly Playback over those two. But Ableton is what I use weekly because it's what I'm used to, number one. And number two, I know it pretty well. It's extremely customizable, can change song tempos on the fly, can change keys quickly, tap tempo into a song. And one of the things I love about it is that you can see all the WAV files of individual stems or tracks. One of the cons of Ableton, though, would be the learning curve, and for some people the price. It's $100 to get into Ableton when you have free apps out there. But each one of these ways has pros and cons, of course. But for all of these programs, you will need to purchase, or even more fun, make tracks for them. And using this tech at your church is going to truly enhance your worship experience. And it's going to aid in giving excellent glory to God. So I figured the rest of this time I could use just demoing some of these programs and what they can do. And we'll get started with that right now. Okay, so I want to look around the Ableton interface first so you can see what this looks like. This is our set that we're doing for our Sunday service this Sunday. And basically I have a linear view of each song. We're doing 3 songs this Sunday, each song that we're doing. My Testimony, My Jesus, and What a Beautiful Name. And what I've brought into this session is a click track, which is right here, a guide, so that's somebody saying where we're going next.
Verse 1.
Like that. Background vocals, choir, electric guitar 1 through 5, because we only have one electric guitar player here, and this beefs up the song, having all these extra. And then keys 1 through 3, organ, percussion, synth effects. Sounds like this. It's almost percussive kind of feel. A synth loop, and then vocal effects, which sounds like this for this song. All right, so I'm going to play a little bit of this song so you can see kind of how it goes. Then we'll talk a little bit more about what's happening here. So you're going to hear a click. That's the metronome. You're going to hear a guide, and then you're going to hear the extra instrumentation.
1, 2, vamp, 2, 3, 4. Verse 1. Verse 2.
Okay, so that's what's happening. Our team is singing along and playing along. You notice there's no bass, there's no main piano, there's no drums in this track. Our electric guitarist, the way that we do that is sometimes we leave all tracks in, sometimes we will customize and say, you know what, that first guitar, we're going to leave it in, we're just going to make it a lot quieter because you're doing kind of the same thing over it. Or if they're doing exactly the same thing as maybe electric guitar 2 the entire time, we'll just take that out altogether. Okay? So I can tell you, if it's the first time looking at a program like Ableton, it can look very intimidating, but it's just like anything new. Once you learn a couple of the basics, it becomes a lot easier. For instance, here's the process of creating a set in Ableton. Determine your songs first, and 2, make sure that you have the tracks for those songs. 3, drag them in to each channel. If you know about audio stuff, then you know this looks like a normal audio program, DAW. And then you're labeling the sections of the song, and those are the basics of it. There's a couple little things in between there, but that's basically the process. So at that point, you're just learning what Ableton uses specifically, like which buttons to press, that kind of thing. So one of the questions that we talked about earlier is how, if you're locked in, like you have a soundtrack, are you locked into playing it exactly that order? And the answer is no, you don't. That's why you label the sections that you're in. Here's an example. If we're in the chorus of this song, My Testimony. This is my testimony, from death to life. His grace rewrote my story. I'm testifying. I need the grace of righteous. I'm testifying. This is
Break.
my testimony.
Interlude.
This is
All
my
in.
testimony. This is my testimony. So I don't know if you caught what I just did, but instead it said interlude. We're going to the next section, interlude. But what I did was I pressed chorus again, and that brought us right back to doing the chorus. So you're not locked in when you're using a program like this. You can go in and out of sections. The Spirit can still move. You can move in and out of sections just like you would if you weren't playing with tracks. But you have the advantage of having a fuller sound. When you hear a song on the radio or you hear a song on iTunes, Spotify, whatever, one of the things that draws you in probably the lyrics and then how it sounds. And you're like, oh man, that section sounds so big. Well, if you just have a piano and a drummer, which I have actually had that for over a year. It was me and a drummer. And I played key bass for a little over a year. Then when you get to those sections that feel real big, and that's adding that extra powerful, just like writing powerful words, writing powerful music with that helps deliver the point home. Of course, God doesn't care about any of that stuff. He just wants our praise, but we like that stuff. That's, so when you get to those sections, you want it to feel bigger. And if it's just keys and drummer, it's hard to make it feel like that. You're playing louder and harder, but that doesn't necessarily make it really feel like the build that you felt when you were listening to it, originally. So having these extra elements helps drive that point home and get bigger and makes it feel like what you actually heard originally when you heard the song. So here's another example of going in and out.
1.
Say you start the song,
Vamp.
and
2,
we've done this before.
3, 4.
And maybe the worship leader's kind of exhorting a little bit. It's not time to go to the verse, so we're going to do the intro again. So the worship leader can still keep exhorting and going through. Okay, we ready to go on to the verse? No,
1.
Not yet? Okay, keep the intro going again. So you do it one more time, like that. Okay, I'm pressing this intro over here. All right, looks like worship leader's ready to move on, so we go to verse. Here we go. I saw Satan fall like lightning. That, okay? So right now, I'm clicking to go to each section. I'm sitting at a desk and I'm clicking to go to each section. That's not practical because when you're in service, you're not sitting at a desk. You don't have a mouse in your hand clicking. So there are a couple different ways that you can go about assigning different. These are called triggers up here. Number one, first way is, see it says key up here. So you can press key. And then you can press, look, you can see I have a 1 right there. Here, and actually, if you look at the next song, I have a 2. You look at the last song, I have a 3. That's because on my laptop that I have up on the stage with me, when it's time to go to song, like if I'm in song 1, it's time to go to song 2, I'm just pressing 2 on my keyboard. Ding, and then it brings me to my Jesus right here. And then when it's time to go to song 3, I press 3 on my keyboard that I'd assigned in advance. And it brings me to the last song, What a Beautiful Name. So you can do the same kind of thing. You can assign different sections. So if you know, like, if any part of the song you're going to repeat, and maybe my testimony is going to be the second chorus, then what you could do would be press key. That means everything on your screen that is assignable to be a trigger, or that is assignable with your keyboard, and I mean like typing keyboard. It's going to be the chorus here. So you'd press chorus like that, and I'm just going to put C for chorus. So say you're getting to the end of the chorus. Instead of pressing a mouse, you can press C. This is my testimony. So I just triggered going back into that chorus by pressing C that I had assigned. Okay? So another way that you could actually assign things is you could, each one of these section labels, these triggers here, you saw you could use a regular typing keyboard, but you can also use MIDI. That could be any kind of MIDI device, like a MIDI keyboard, one of the small MIDI keyboards. It could be like an MPC drum pad, any kind of drum pad. Anything that puts out MIDI signal, you can assign to each of these sections. So technically you could have, this is what I used to do. I used to have a secondary keyboard up on top of my normal keyboard, and I would label, like basically an octave would have song 1, start, and then verse 1, verse 2, verse 3, chorus 1, chorus 1, chorus 3, like that. And I could press whatever section it is and then assign that. I'd click that, press song 2, click that, press verse 1, chorus 1, verse 2, chorus 2, and so on. So if I really wanted to be customizable on the song without having to actually click on these triggers, then I could do it that way. Now, that's what I did when I was first getting into Ableton. Now I actually, I really just label the songs 1, 2, and 3, and my laptop is close enough and that if we're going in and out of a section, I'll just reach up and I'll actually physically click on the section that we're going on. But that's 3 different ways you can do it. You can either click on the section you want to go to. You can assign it with a typing keyboard, or you can assign it with a MIDI device. 3 different ways to assign different sections. But again, an advantage of Ableton and one of these programs is that when you have these stems, you have each of these tracks, you're able to listen in and see what the original artists did on these songs. So if I'm like wondering, what's keys 2 doing? I can solo it. Oh, okay. I can see that it's like a keyboard pad kind of sound that has a percussive, like almost xylophone-like tone to it. What's keys 3 doing? It's like orchestra stabs. So if you have an aux keys player, they could be listening to keys 2 and keys 3, and they could work on that. And if you felt really good and they felt really good that they really had that part down, then guess what? You don't have to keep those tracks in. Okay? You can get rid of them. Just delete them out of the set. So that's that quick view of running tracks in Ableton. And again, you get to see like it's really, really customizable. May look like a spaceship, like there's a bunch of different things, but this is just an overview, right? We're just looking at generally the process of what using tracks would be in Ableton. Okay. Next, we're going to look at another app. Okay, so let's take a look at Multitracks Playback App. The interface looks like this on an iPad, and it's pretty straightforward and simple. That's the appeal of it, because like I said earlier, Ableton was like the grandfather of these multi-tracks systems. And what Multitracks Playback and Loop Community did was they stripped away all the extra stuff from Ableton so that it didn't look so hard to comprehend, and stripped it down to make it one simple interface like this. And it's really, really cool. The main drawback would be that you don't get to see each individual stem in your program. It just all outputs and looks like one, mono track is what it looks like. It is stereo. But you still do have each individual stem. If you look down here, you've got like drums, percussion, bass, electric guitar. You can solo those parts like that. So you still do have the tracks there. It's just that you're not seeing them in that linear view, like each one stacked on top of each other. This is the song Gyra. Basically, the way that this works is that you would click edit whenever you want to add a new song. It says add new song. And any song that's in your library from multitracks.com, you can add in here. So I'm looking at my library and songs, and let's see, let's put Fire by CC Winans in. It'll show you the arrangement that you have. That's the default arrangement. The product is in a multi-track M4A tracks. Do you want to import all of them, or do you want to be more selective about which ones you want to import? All of this stuff, I would just, as soon as you put add song, I would just click add. But you can adjust the key. You can adjust the tempo. Oh, not on this one, but you can adjust the key on this one. And you click add when you want to do that. And then it's going to, you can see that green loading bar. It's downloading the song to this device. And you click done whenever you're done. It asks if I want to save the set list to the cloud. No, I don't yet, because I'm still working on the set list. But Gyra's already in there. Fire by CC Winans is about to be in there. You can see that the loading part is just about done. There it is. It's done. Okay, so I can see what this looks like across. Here's what it sounds like on the output.
1, 2, vamp, 2, 3, 4.
That still sounds like Gyra.
There we go.
Verse 2, 3, 4.
So just like we were looking at in Ableton, this is following the song. You can see that it has the C there. That means we're going into the chorus.
Chorus
So
2,
let it go to the
3,
chorus.
4.
If you double tap the section, you can see that it was blinking for that C, and that little white ring showed up. That means it's going to be the chorus
2,
again,
3, 4.
instead of going on to the next section. That's what makes it super simple. If I'm like, we're going to skip verse 3, we're going to skip that chorus, we're going to go to this next chorus, I just double click the next chorus.
Chorus 2, 3,
It's going to do the
4.
same thing. You see? It goes RF is refrain. I'm going to say we're going to do the chorus again, but we're going to do, I can tell it's a broken down chorus.
Chorus 2,
Because
3,
the
4.
wave files look smaller. So there you go. I can even move way forward. And I can double click end.
Ending 2, 3, 4.
Just like that. So that's the super cool thing about this, is that you can still move in and out of sections. You don't have any labeling to do because it's already been done for you in each of these. Again, another advantage that you have is that your church can have a subscription to where you have multiple seats, multiple licenses. So basically, your music director can have administrative control over this, and then you can let like your bass, like your band, and maybe even the vocals too, some of them have access to each of these songs. There's like a small fee involved in that, but what they could do is they could download the app. Again, the app is free, and then they could go in and it can be like electric guitar 1, and they can look at a section and solo that section. They can hear what the electric guitar is doing, right? Same thing for any of the other instruments. Another deal, you can, just like a regular mixer, this says bass, I can bring the bass down, and I can bring the drums down, right? Just like we did before, we just didn't import them into Ableton. We would just turn those instruments down here. It's a cool song, by the way. Instead of doing bridge, we're going to go to outro. So I double-clicked outro.
2, 3, 4.
I double-clicked that
Ending 2,
outro,
3, 4.
and then I decided, no, we're not going to do the outro again. So I double-clicked it again, and that let it so that we didn't have to keep going there. So that's what a quick overview of Multitracks Playback is. Loop Community is the same exact concept. It's just with a different interface, different looking interface. A couple little tweaks from there.
So that's what it looks like adding multi-tracks to your worship set. That's what it could look like with Ableton. I showed you Ableton, Multitracks Playback App. I didn't show you Loop Community Prime app, but it's the same concept as the other two, and the interface just looks slightly different than Multitracks Playback App. So one of the things that I didn't talk about that you're going to need if you're bringing tracks into your church is that you're going to need an audio interface to go from your device that you're using, whether it's your computer or your tablet or your phone. You need an audio interface that is going to send out to your sound system, and it's going to have 2 channels at least. One is going to be a click channel, the other is going to be a stem track channel, so that you're sending your click to your band. You need an in-ear device system like an Aviom system or a Behringer P16 system or something like that. So you're going to be sending out a channel to your click, with your click, and then one with the track. And ideally you would have a stereo output channel. So you would have channel 1 and 2 are your stereo tracks, and then channel 3 would be your click that you're sending out. So you're sending your click to your band, so they're the only ones hearing the metronome, and then the stems go out to the rest of the house. So they're just hearing those added instruments. Now, there is a workaround if you don't have an in-ear monitoring system, one that I've personally used before at churches that don't have an in-ear monitoring system. That is at least sending the drummer a click channel. And then you're going to have, if you have a sound system, you're going to have a channel that you can send the track out. Hope this helps you, and if you're not using tracks currently, I hope that you'll start, because we want to give excellent glory to God. Again, I said earlier, He doesn't care about what that sounds like as long as we're giving our heart to Him. We're the ones that care about how things sound, and if we want things to be excellent, then let's do what we can on that. God bless you. Have a great day.